Okay. What's up, guys? Hopefully this works a little better. I'm hoping. Typically on the phone version, we can invite for a split screen. So we'll see how this goes and see if this is actually working or not. I'm hoping it is. All right, I see myself, so that's good. See if I can tagging Trish in here, and there we go. What's going on? Just waiting to see. Here we go. Perfect. I'm adding you, Trish. Think it's gonna work.
Hello.
There we go. We're on. We're live.
Hi.
Okay.
Awesome.
What's up, everybody? Let's see what I can do to. I want to see if I can split screen it because it's kind of off to the side right now, and I want to be able to make you bigger.
I have a little me.
Yeah, I know. I see a little you too, and I want to make it so it's a bigger you. I guess
Okay,
that might just have to be the way it is, though. I can see you okay. Like desktop, you look good. Okay, I figured.
What? Looks like I dropped my phone.
Gotta get a stand. Well, let's just go for it.
All right.
It's an ADHD crowd, right?
Yes. Hi there.
Hey, okay, guys. So, hey, so my name is Ben, and the little version is Trish, and I guess for some highs. So yeah, my name is Ben Fung, and I have ADD. All right, I was diagnosed with it when I was 8 years old, and I was sharing a little broadcast. I forgot how many weeks back, and then Trish, you reached out to me, and you're like, "Hey, we should totally chat." And so we did. We hit it off, chat a couple of times, and in 30 different uh, messaging apps and whatnot, which is typical, right? So typical.
Right.
And we were like, you know what? We've got to get together and chat and talk more about it. And it was really interesting because we kind of experienced this in a very different way. Trish, you discovered you had ADHD or have ADHD. It never really goes away, right? You have it, but you discovered it, later in your adult life, whereas I got it technically later in my childhood, but I found a way to manage it early, which is kind of unique. So we thought, this group is pretty cool. It's underappreciated, under talked about, and we figured Trish and I could jump on just for a little bit while we're in the window of times, because that's how our minds work, right? And and just share our discovery process of, hey, how did this how do we find out, and what have we done so far, and what's working, what's not, and just kind of invite this community, which I think is amazing because I wish I had this growing up, on share, right, and share where you guys are as well, whether it's in comments or if you want to jump on a live broadcast or not. Obviously we're not admins of this group. We just figured it'd be a cool conversation for this community to share. So Trish, you want to start us off?
Sure. The place to start. Well, sure. So I just joined this group very recently because it was literally in the last few months that I have I received the diagnosis, and it was not a sudden thing. Oh, we're just going to throw some medicine at you and treat you that way. It was a long process. After just having a lot of activities going on in my life and just hitting a wall with the feeling of overwhelm, and via therapy and talking with people that are in the know, getting a handle on the stress and getting a handle on the overwhelm, ultimately found out that I do indeed have ADD. It's not just anxiety and depression and all the other things that we feel, and the overwhelm, because everybody can feel those emotions, and I think almost everybody can experience some pretty intense depression now and then. But ADD and depression is a totally different ballgame. And what I have discovered is that all of a sudden I totally get my childhood. I totally get why I was the way I was, why I never felt like I fit in, why I was always an overachiever and always in control in a codependent, addictive household. Just, all the things that can happen, ultimately suffering from addiction myself. I'm sober 12 years, sober alcoholic.
Congrats.
But again, anyone that's going to be noticing and tuning into this is going to say, yeah, because there's a lot of for me, Ben, to suddenly have a more unique understanding as to why I am the way I am, why I have made the choices I've made through life. It's empowering, and it's also in itself a little bit overwhelming because I'm literally at the beginning of this journey, which is why when I found this group, and I think it was just that very day or the day before that you had made that live post, I was like, who is this guy? So, because my background is in entertainment, and as an adult, I got into social media marketing and direct sales and all kinds of different projects that I do. And it's all about being on camera and engaging with people. And I immediately felt engaged. There it is. Am I ready for my close-up?
Yeah.
I immediately felt engaged, excuse me, when I watched your video, and I thought, wow, it gave me such a feeling of empowerment to see this young man who has mastered this thing that we've got and has made a very successful career for himself in multiple projects and has a beautiful family and obviously has it going on. And that's the kind of people that I like to be connected with, and just, well, lo and behold, he's got ADD too. Yay! It's just a feeling of not being alone.
That's so big. Not
so
feeling alone is so big.
Yeah. And so, so here we are making this first broadcast. I am currently experimenting with medication, the non-addictive kinds, and with varying degrees of success, because even as I speak to you, I'm thinking of about 1,000 other things I'd like to be saying at the same time.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say them all.
Yeah. And, I did a little video with my son, who's 14, and also an actor and an entertainer, not so far ADD, but you never know. And I went off on a tangent, an ADD tangent. I just did what do we call it, Ben, when we're speaking? It was a free association, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did that. And I think I must have gone on for about 20 minutes. And in the end,
Mom, what are we doing?
I got all the way back to it.
Yep.
Oh, I did.
And that's what we do. Our minds do that.
And I watched it over and over again. I'm like, well, I'm making perfect sense. And even my son said, he said, well, you make perfect sense. You just have a lot to say.
Yeah. And you got to follow it in. Yeah, you got to follow it through. I mean, my wife makes fun of me all the time. She's like, look, you've just had 20 conversations. I'm having one. And like, I'm still trying to catch up on the first one, even though like everything you've made sense so far. Obviously it's a coherent thought, but it's just not how, like we had this conversation, privately on our phone. I hope you don't mind me spilling the beans here. But
no,
please, like we talked about like how like ADD, ADHD, I mean, like way back in the day, guys, like if you follow the history of ADD, and I have a degree in psych and happen to use some of that studying time in pediatric psychology, right? And now, with the transition of what's called a DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, that's how psychologists and psychiatrists diagnose certain things, primarily in mental health, which does include this thing called ADD or ADHD. And back when I was studying, it was called like the DSM-4 TR is version 4, Transitional Review, I think it was called. And ADD or ADHD was diagnosed by certain types of behavior and certain ways that you would see the world, essentially, or process the world. Either you were you're highly attention deficit was what they called it, or you're hyperactive, or you could have been both. But you had a leaning towards one or the other. And Trish, when you and I talked, we were talking about how, it's kind of everything and nothing. Everybody expresses it and experiences it differently. And it's very much, call it continuum-based or spectral, kind of like the spectrum disorders. And I hate that they're called disorders because I don't really feel like well, my office might be a little disorderly, but I don't feel like, my life or my brain necessarily is. And guys, for me, in case you didn't catch my first broadcast, so I have a green screen behind me, obviously. I'm in a home office. I have two startup companies, and one's in digital media and marketing. One I'm a virtual CFO for. And I am probably the prototypical example of how you can have ADD or ADHD and still have a fairly successful academic career. It didn't start that way. So I have an MBA, I have a doctorate in physical therapy. Both I graduated with honors or distinction. Not necessarily difficult task, not easy task either, but here's the kicker. The kicker is in college, I had a 2.8 GPA, which is borderline failure for most, four-year colleges. Like, and that's just, it was a terrible thing. In fact, when I applied to graduate school, they're like, what are you doing? And why are you even here? And it wasn't until they heard my story and I talked to them. In fact, I talked to them about ADD. They're like, okay, this is getting interesting. They had a concern that I couldn't do well in school, which I did, but they were then more open to just hearing about the story, which I think my takeaway for you guys is, I feel that ADD, ADHD for so long has this stigma and this idea that, oh, you've been cursed now. Like now it's over. You have to be on medication. You're disabled. You have all these things that are doomed to come your way. You're going to have to find some way around life. And that's just not true. We just have a different mechanism of how we look at life. We look at life through different wavelengths, kind of like Neo looks at things differently in the Matrix. For me, I found out I had ADD after I got in trouble way too many times in grade school. I was in second, third grade, and my school at the time had this system where if you were bad, you got your name written on the board. And if you were bad again, within like the next school day, you got a check mark. And then if you were getting bad again, you had 2 check marks. And like 2 check marks is unheard of. Like that third check mark, you went to the principal, right? And like I had 2 check marks by my name for the entire school year. Like the teacher didn't bother to erase my name off the board because it was like, it was a win if Ben behaved himself, right? And so I found out kind of this thing like you have ADD, and that's why you act crazy and lay on the ground randomly and don't raise your hand when you talk. That's why you fidget. That's why you run around. That's why you go to the big kids playground and get beat up there. Like all these different things. That is why. And I think what wasn't the pivotal moment for me wasn't that, hey, this is why it's happening. It turned into, now you have a way out. Now you have a how, right? Because the reason is great, but when I discovered that, okay, this is how I process the world, and this is why I kind of, I don't want to say disagree, but I'm on a different wavelength with basically everybody else I knew at the time at all of 7 or 8 years old. And it's not that, I don't want to say it's different because I feel like that's overplayed, right? Like it's not better or worse, it's different. It's not even that.
And it's special.
Right, it's special. Like it's none of that, what it really is guys, some people like art, some people like music, right? It's the way your brains are wired. It's part of your personality. Call it part of even your soul. If you have been given this diagnosis, this is the way, call it modern medicine, labels this culture of people, this understanding of people. Just like, way back in the day, they called, artists, witches, because how dare you express yourself, that kind of stuff. So we're just in a different time zone. And I think now, especially in this millennial age, it's become much more welcoming of this idea that, hey, people are allowed to think differently and process life differently. Since I was 8, I've been off medications. I've been able to get through 2 rounds of grad school, undergraduate, and I survived. I didn't fail out. In fact, I did okay. I did pretty well. All to say that I think really, Trish and I just wanted to jump on here and encourage you guys. I think it's so easy to feel alone. And when you realize you're not alone, that's super powerful. And we have this awesome community. There's like 5,000 people in here, which is amazing, right? And it doesn't really matter how many people aren't active. The fact is it's here. So, content lives forever. You might be watching this in a year. You might be watching this tomorrow. It doesn't really matter. You might be watching it right now in live, which is awesome. Give us some thumbs up and some hearts, please. Yeah, that would be amazing because that's social feedback that Trish and I could use right now because we're kind of out there.
Yeah. This was so spontaneous, folks.
It really was. It's like Trish and I have been trying to connect, and we've been like texting and Facebook messaging, and we just jumped on a Facebook, live, like a messenger video chat, and we're like, you know what? You want to jump on now? Like, sure. Yeah. So we did.
And I don't know, for me, of course, we're in different time zones. I'm in Minneapolis, California, and I still have, a couple more things I'm trying to cram into the end of my day. And I'm looking at them like, nah. I'm going to be really ADD about it and jump into this. But, this has been at the top of my list to do forever. I mean, I remember we had a conversation. We had one conversation on the phone about a week ago, before Thanksgiving. And you had said something like, we should have been recording this.
Yes.
This conversation was the perfect vignette of what it's like to have ADD and be talking about it. But this is a great forum. Hi, Missy.
Hey, Missy.
I'm really
Thank
happy to
you
be
for being here.
And I'm happy that we've started something. I'm not sure what we're going to do about this. I'm not sure where we're going to go with this, but I just have a feeling, Ben, that you and I are going to be continuing to connect and finding ways to help each other and help other people max out their potential, maximize and beyond, even while they're walking around with their head full of a bazillion ideas.
In different places and time zones, who knows? Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably good as an intro to wrap up right there. I'm sure you and I can go on forever because that's how we do.
Oh, yeah.
So, guys, I figure, if you like this, give us some thumbs up. Heck, even share it on your timelines if you're comfortable, because I think one of the things I've learned, because my background in the ADHD community is actually overseas. I wrote a series of articles I was translated into Chinese, and it was like 6 or 8 articles, all read, like 250,000 times back before, back before blogs were a thing. Like it was on this like classic old school, like Yahoo GeoCities, ugly, I'm so sorry, but ugly, ugly website. But it obviously resonates, guys. Like the fact that we can talk about this is a resonating thing. So how about we end here now before we derail our entire thing?
Absolutely.
And Missy, how about, I'd love to get you on a future broadcast. Maybe you can hit Trish and I up on a group message and see if we can do like a 3-way. And maybe we can make this, whether it's just in this group or we can make it more of a public broadcast, like whatever the case might be. I figured, I think Trish, you and I, we were so passionate about being able to do this live in front of people, which is onto our performer sides because we're both performers.
Yes.
And then, and if anything, just share the message, or share the message that you're not alone. There are ways, there is hope. More importantly than hope, you can achieve. You can make it and beyond. Because I think the secret that the world doesn't want you to know is that ADD, ADHD, anything in this, flavor, it's actually a superpower if you know how to channel it. We'll talk more about that next time. All right.
Sounds good. See ya.
See you, Trish. Thanks for jumping on.
Bye.
Bye, guys.